Okay, we're streaming to YouTube. Make sure it's on Facebook, and then we'll get the ball rolling. We'll probably start at like 1:35, just so you know. Okay, people are coming in. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Probably get started at about 1:35, so thank you for your patience.
Should I start? I see that I'm being spotlighted, but I know you wanted to introduce everyone.
Yeah, we'll start at about 1:35 just to give some people who are trickling in a few minutes after 1:30 a little bit of a grace period. I'll make the announcement and let you know. Tyson Mark Lagonde's here. Hello to everyone who's just joining us. Thank you for being here. We'll get started at about 1:35. Thank you for your patience. We'll get started in about 2 minutes here. All right, 1 more minute. We'll get started. Thank you so much for your patience. All right, I think we can get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have such awesome participation and energy. Super excited for this event right here of a panel of up-and-coming incredible artists. My name is Allie Taylor, and on behalf of a new music organization, Music Deconstructed, we're here presenting a 2-day online symposium, See Better, Hear Better, Know Better, a 2-day online event on deconstructing race and gender biases in music. This is our second event of the day, and we are featuring Sasha Berliner, Veronica Swift, and Tyson Jackson. Before we get started, I just want to thank the team that organized this: Alon Sullivan, Josie Alla, Meg Brennan, Sammy Sussman, Eliza Salem, Bob Hurst, Ed Sareth, Aiden Taylor, and Mark Hannaford. I want to thank our sponsor for this event, the Excel Lab at the University of Michigan. And I think with that, and we will be facilitating a Q&A after each presenter speaks. If you wish to be considered for the Q&A, message me directly and I'll put you in the queue. With that, our first speaker is Sasha Berliner. She is a graduate of the New School of Jazz and Contemporary Music. In addition to performing internationally with her own project, Sasha Berliner Azalea, her recent notable performances have been with musicians such as drummer-composer Tyshawn Sorey, trumpet player Nicholas Payton, and jazz vibraphonist Warren Wolf, and drummer Quincy Davis. In 2019, she was a nominee for Best Vibraphonist in the Downbeat Readers Poll and Best New Artist in the Jazz Times Reader Poll. Sasha, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So just, I guess, as an initial preface, I just moved, so my Wi-Fi, I don't have it set up. I'm sort of hotspotting from my phone. If it really becomes an issue, I can go directly from my phone and reconnect, but hopefully it'll be okay. So just if things are a little spotty, I apologize. It's only because of that. But yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess I can start by talking about my experience at college. I guess I've always been a part of, sort of academic music programs since I was pretty young, since I started playing the vibraphone basically in 8th grade. I went to a performing arts high school in performing arts middle school and high school, 8th grade through all of high school, where I did have like 3 sort of designated school periods to go to, devoted to music courses, whether it's ensemble work or theory or rhythm or whatever it is. And then I basically continued that in college. And I think a big takeaway for me in terms of, I guess, the academic portion of being, I guess, at a music university is that just because someone is in a position of authority doesn't mean that they're always 100% right about everything. And I think, I don't know if this has to do with being a woman or not. I think anyone can really consider that piece of advice, but I do think that I've found that a lot of male teachers would be intimidated, especially by a woman who is enthusiastic or passionate or who wanted to ask a lot of questions or say, hey, can you explain this more? And then they think you're being, fussy or, not listening to them. And I was actually told once to like shut up and listen to the teacher when I was in high school. I remember that had a really like serious impact on me. And I was just asking my teacher to explain something theoretically. And I was like, well, I don't understand, wait, can you, it was just me trying to get him to elaborate more. And then my director was basically like, he knows what he's talking about, just shut up and listen. And I was like, wow, all right, I'd never really been talked to like that before. And so I think, don't let those sort of experiences, I don't know if any of you have experienced that yourself, but don't let those sort of experiences dictate, how, strong your voice should be. If you want to ask questions, you're there to learn. If you want to ask questions, want to, pick your teacher's brain, that should be seen as a good thing because it means you're passionate. It means you want to, you're inquisitive. You want to know more about what you're learning. You want to know why. Like for me, I've always been a person who wants to know why things happen, not just, take in information and be like, yeah, okay, all right, sounds good. That's why this chord or whatever. Okay, I played this chord over, this section, or I learned this scale for this chord. I want to know like why something works, how it makes me feel, that kind of thing. So definitely, if you have a teacher who's not, responsive to that kind of thing, I think it's important to like not let them stifle you in that sense. And I think that's something I experienced up until college as well. And I think, it's easy, I think, as a woman to feel like, I don't know, like not only, are you not allowed to do that, but I guess, what am I trying to say? But maybe that, I don't know. I'm having trouble explaining that. Anyways, going back to sort of my initial point, I think that as a woman, I had a lot of teachers who really wanted to like control what I did with my life and what I did with my sound. It wasn't very much encouraged, except by, a couple of teachers, for me to sort of curate my own sound. I had to sound like someone else. I had to, emulate someone else on the instrument. And that's a great practice, of course. We all transcribe, we all learn from the masters. That's how we sort of develop our language as jazz artists, as improvising artists. You have to do your research and do your homework and everything. But at the same time, a part of the reason why I wanted to go to the new school is because this is a school that's built on, innovation. And I love, such a diverse set of folks graduated from that school, from Brad Meldau to Robert Glasper to Bilal to, all sorts of people, Becca Stevens. And I was really impressed by the sort of range of, folks and these people who have these really unique individual voices. And yet at the same time, I think that, especially as a woman, like I was so much told like that I needed to sound like someone else in order to be valid. And I think I became so preoccupied with that it actually started harming me, instead of it sort of focusing on like, what is my gift? What is my impact? What is my voice? And I think one of the teachers that really did that for me was Stefan Harris, when I studied with him in my first year at New School, because he is 100% all about, curate your own voice, tap into your own gift. Everyone, we all play the same, we may play the same instruments. There are multiple vibraphonists, multiple singers, multiple drummers. You're always going to find someone who can do something that you can do, or who can do it better, or can do certain things worse. You can play the comparison day all along. It doesn't matter. It's more that we all have, we're improvising artists because we all have our own points of view, and we all have our own stories to tell, our own emotions and experiences that have informed, you know, what we do and why we create and that kind of thing. And a teacher should never discourage you from doing that. And I think when my experience at least was that when teachers saw that coming from a woman, it was wrong. It was intimidating. It was. I remember I performed a song at Gen, the Jazz Education Network in Dallas. I think when I was like 19, and I was playing one of my songs, and I had someone write down like, "Oh, that chord choice was too ambitious," and I was like, "What's wrong with that?" Like, and it wasn't too ambitious. I knew how to use it. But it was probably a chord that it's a chord that I guess I studied with Stefan Harris, so his whole thing is about, he has a very particular sort of way of studying harmony, and some of the sort of rules go against conventional jazz harmony, and so a lot of jazz theory teachers who say didn't have as much experience working in the real world as much as they spent the last 10 years getting a PhD in jazz studies, whatever that means. Um, and then they think that they can, I don't know, they think they can tell me, what chords to use where, and also like, it should never be a bad thing for something to be too ambitious, even if it is too ambitious. Like, why would you write that as a fault? Like, at least say I admire your ambition, or maybe work out this chord a little more if I did use it wrong, or wrong, whatever that means. But maybe you want to explore this chord more, or just keep working it out, or something like that. Like, it just, there's something about telling, ambition being too wrong that just seems to sort of sum up a lot of my experiences as a woman in jazz. And yeah, I think on that note too, another thing is like, oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought again. I have notes and stuff, so there's a couple of things I'm trying to tackle. The sort of impact as a instructor or as a teacher in terms of expectation, and the impact that you can have when you, even if a student is struggling, say, or something like that, if you expect the most out of them, they will perform better. That's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, or like, oh, if you communicate like, oh, I believe in your potential, I believe in your maximum potential, no matter what skill level you're at, that student is going to perform better because of the potential that's believed in them. And I think something I experienced is that teachers routinely believe my potential to be lower as a woman. So before they even hear me, they just expect you to perform worse, and they expect you to not know as much. And that kind of thing was, super damaging for me as well. So I think in those sort of cases, like if someone ever comes at you like that, whether it be, in class or in ensemble or something, be like, hey, like that's actually not, how I am. I actually do know this thing, or, and I think it's also important that, like, if you notice that happening to a peer of yours, please say something, because this did happen to me at the new school, where before I even played my instrument, I don't know if any of you read the essay I wrote a couple years ago on my experiences with sexism, but I explained this experience where before I even played a note, this teacher asked me if I knew the chords to an F blues, which is just insulting. I'm like, I'm at the new school on almost a full scholarship. You haven't heard me play a note, and you're asking me if I know an F blues? Like, that was like the first thing I learned on my instrument. It was so insulting. And he took it back because he immediately knew that what he said was wrong. But I think something that hurt even more was that I didn't have any students speak up for me. Like, they knew that that was rude, but they didn't say anything. And it made me feel really alone and really upset. And those kinds of things, like,
Sasha, we can't hear you anymore. Okay, I think we can hear you now. Oh, wait. We still can't hear you.
Oh, I don't have anything
Oh,
muted.
we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Sorry about that. Where did it cut off?
Just a few seconds ago.
Okay. All right.
You were talking about your experience with sexism at the new school.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess the long story short is, if you see these kinds of things, and I'm sure you've probably heard this before, please stand, your there's such this like individualistic, I don't know, importance in terms of like I need to be good, I need to be the best, and not music is like a social. It's like a social. I don't want to say hobby. It's a social endeavor. It's a community you create with other people. You need to support the people that you play music with, and I think there's so much like importance stressed on like individual success and individual fostering and individual like I don't know. It's very like it's competitive, in a sort of individualistic sense, and I think that kind of thing leads us to sort of I don't know, not dismiss but overlook when certain microaggressions or certain off comments happen because we tend to be absorbed with our own self progress and things like that. So it's just something you want to keep in mind, and whether it be about gender, whether it be about race, whether it be about homophobia or transphobia or any of those things, you definitely want to keep in mind and you want to, say something. And yeah, I guess going back to my very initial point, um, you know, just because a teacher says something, and doesn't mean that you have to follow it 100%. You're there to learn at school and things like that, but it doesn't mean you have to follow everything that a teacher recommends. They're really just people with informed opinions or experiences. And I'm not saying don't, blow off all your teachers or anything like that, but if you can sort of think about, match their experiences with yours. Like for me, I couldn't relate to some of my teachers because they weren't really working musicians. They had spent 10 years getting a PhD in jazz studies, and they weren't really working musicians. They didn't know what's happening in the scene today. It's outdated. I think Tyson and I were actually talking about this at Berkeley, where there's just a bunch of teachers where they're not working on the scene. They don't know what's relevant right now, and yet they want to feel like they have a better opinion over yours, in terms of what's best for the industry now or something like that. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. So that kind of thing, definitely take those folks' opinions with a grain of salt, I guess. And well, I don't know. I guess I'm running out of my time, but I don't know. Does anyone have any questions or?
We're gonna open it up for a Q&A after all the presentations. So again, if you have a question, message me directly and I'll put you in the queue. Thank you, Sasha.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Our next speaker is Tyson Jackson. He's a graduate of the Berklee School of Music and has studied and performed with world-renowned artists, including Dee Dee Bridgewater, Terrence Blanchard, Darren Barrett, AJ Wright, Terry Lynn Carrington, who was our keynote last night, Ralph Peterson, Tia Fuller, Sean Jones, and Jon Hendricks. Tyson feels that these experiences are invaluable and have truly helped propel him in his professional career. Tyson and I, side note, actually went to middle school together and have known each other for a long time, so it's amazing to see his career develop, and I'm really proud of him. Tyson, ready?
Sorry, too many buttons to press and whatnot, but okay. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, first of all, round of applause to Sasha for an amazing presentation. Can y'all see this on your screen? The whole thing? Or is it cut off? You can see the whole thing, Veronica. I see it
It's
now.
a little cut off.
It's a little cut off. Let me see if I can like move it. That's
Yeah,
better,
that's
probably.
great. That's great.
Killing. Well, first of all, wow, Veronica, there's so many, I mean, not Veronica, but Sasha, there's so many things from your presentation that I really want to dive into a bit more, but I'll have to hold my tongue into the Q&A. Man, Jen is really in these comments today. I love it. But the the title of my presentation is Biases in Music Culture. And just a little, I mean, I know we talked a little bit, but just a little more about, a little more about me. So born and raised in West Palm Beach, Florida, followed the arts path with school from elementary school all the way up until college. In middle school where Ali and I both met. And from there, I've had the pleasure to be able to work with and as well as be mentored by some incredible musicians that have definitely shaped my artistry, not just my artistry, but just my character as well. And I'm so thankful for them. And since we're talking about gender and race, these are a few people, and the biggest in the picture, clearly, she has to get the most love, is my mom, Denise Williams, who was a single parent, who definitely, I don't know, helped to cultivate and kind of show me how to value women. I think that's one of the biggest things that I think we're missing in the industry right now. It's like, man, like, you know, you guys are the givers of life. Like without you, there would be no us. So I mean, why not place the value and the emphasis on the ones that really matter the most? You know, I mean, it takes two to tango, but in addition to that, Dee Dee Bridgewater, someone who was an amazing vocalist. But aside from that, what I love about sharing the same space as Dee Dee is that she just brings such an energy and also just a spirit. It's kind of like she's like my second mom or something like that. Like she just has this overall vibe that's just so giving, and I love that. On and off the bandstand, she's just such a powerful woman, so pristine, and has definitely helped me in the short amount of time we spent together so far, just to continue to be able to develop musically, but also shape my character as well. Nino Katamaji, who you see there, what's so powerful about music, and I wanted to include her, is she's based in Tbilisi, Georgia. An amazing vocalist, huge there, and in Russia and a couple other places, but she doesn't speak any English at all. Very little English at all. And what's so powerful about it is that, man, like every time we play, I know exactly what she wants to do, where she wants to go. And it's just simply just because of, I don't know, there's this spirit of sincerity that we both share. And it's just so easy for me to be able to connect as well as relate to her in all the best ways possible. So I'm very thankful for her. And then also I'll consider on this path, Tia Fuller, wow, is like, man, she's become like a big sister, but like a mom to me, someone that I talk to probably every other week about any given thing. And was so, same with her, the same, sharing the same spirit that all of these women kind of share, which is so open and so giving and so willing to help and assist and also be real. Like I can come to her about just about anything and be vulnerable, and then she can also check me on anything, and I'll take it because it's like, that's Tia, you know. So in addition to them, there are also some strong male figures in my life. AJ Wright, who was mentioned, who's not my biological father, but like my spiritual dad. He's worked with the likes of Yolanda Adams and many more, who's definitely shaped me and my character. Sean Jones, incredible trumpet player, who I'm sure you all know, big bro to me, powerful player, but just as powerful activist and speaker and leader. And these are just a few of the people who inform everything that I do. Moving right along. So it's actually funny, the timing of this and Allison bringing this up, because I actually just did a project not too long ago that was coming from the perspective, I heard so many things happening around Berkeley and happening just around just about people just underappreciating women in the industry. And I'm like, man, I want to do something about it. Like, what can I do? Like, how can I use my platform and use my resources to create a project that will kind of expose, not necessarily, definitely this generation, but also just more men, like to really hear the tone of women and what, how you guys feel and how it's really affecting you in the way that we're treating you and the things that we could be doing to better enhance the overall scene. Because I mean, all of these things that we're talking about point back to, man, get into the music. I feel like a lot of the things that we're talking about frustrate me because it's like, it shouldn't even be a question. We shouldn't even be talking about this. Like, this should be about music. You know what I mean? Like, why are we even talking about equality? Why are we even talking about like, aren't we here to serve the music? I'm laughing at Veronica because she's going. Oh my God. No, but so please take a listen at this. And the name has changed. It was undermined, underappreciated, and undervalued, but now it's overlooked, undervalued, and fed up. Listen to this. Let me know if you can hear it. Uh-oh. Doesn't sound like you can hear it. 1 second. I think I have to do this. Yeah, here we go. Can you guys hear that?
Question number 1. What are the biggest issues women face in the music industry today?
I think one of the problems is when you go on stage, you're scared because you know how people are going to perceive you and they will think that you are expected to dance or sing just because you have blonde hair, just because you're tall, just because you look nice. I think that's like the stereotypes is a huge problem, and one of the most important points is that we as women, we dress up not because we are trying to compensate for the lack of knowledge. And if you see a drummer in a fancy jacket, you wouldn't tell him that he's overcompensating for his playing because he's a male. So I think that's one of the issues as well. And I'm happy that I did not experience that back home. However, I experienced some negative situations in New York in particular. And I think it's something that's ingrained in the culture, and I'm glad you're bringing it up.
Well, darling, that's difficult. I would say that the number one issue that we women face in the music industry today is sexism. And under sexism, you will find, inequality, lack of respect for women in general. For some reason, it has just been embedded into the psyche of our society for so long that women are second best. We're almost like a second-class citizen.
Equity, that keeps coming up, right? So really having and developing equity for female musicians to be recognized, it's like not about having the token female in the band, but really finding out how to express true equity for regardless of gender, And I feel as though, I don't know if I have the exact solution for that, but I know that that is one thing that is still needs to improve.
So yeah, that was just a little something. I think that first speaker, Anastasia Petrova, who's a great pianist. I studied at the Berkeley Global Jazz Institute with her, and then Dee Dee was so kind as to share a few words, and great vocalist as well, Nadia Washington. And then Terry, who I'll talk about, gave me a few pointers as well, but I'll talk about that in the next slide. But and second, I think it's important for me to talk about my experience as not just as an African American, but also as a male. I think separately. I mean, and they can kind of, you know, tie into each other. But I don't. As an African American, I think one of the biggest problems, FYI, Tyson is a drummer. One of the biggest problems is that I would say in education, maybe, or even an opportunity. I think I've definitely been one of the blessed ones who's been able to, I don't know, living on 9th and Tamarind, coming out of the hood, you know, then coming to, you know, Berkeley and being all these different places. It's definitely been a blessing, but I can't say the same thing for other people who look like me in my community who might be just as talented, but don't have the platform or the means to be able to go to a Berkeley, or the means to be able to sit in the room with Dee Dee Bridgewater or whatever. And I think when we, as far high as you go up, that's as far low I feel like that you need to come back down, you know, and get back into the community and give back, like doing this. And this is not even, but doing, anytime someone asks me to speak or share my experience is like a no-brainer, because I feel like if not us, then who? You know, you know, you never know the impact and the influence that you can have just as someone else did when you were the same age, you know, as them. So I think it's very, very important. Absolutely getting back to the roots. I see you guys in the comments. But yeah, and then as a male, solely, I was talking to Terry, and this one I'll bring this up, and I can kind of move forward also as I'm doing that. As a male, I feel it's important for us to, I was asking Terry, I'm like, well, you know, what are some things that I can do to kind of help cultivate and kind of, you know, just make the overall scene and make the build the equity and build the comfortability on the bandstand and all that stuff. And she's like, well, honestly, and this is, there's different sides to Terry, which is killing, but, and this is in an email, but I could totally catch her vibe. But she was saying, well, I shouldn't be the one, you know, telling you what you can do. It's like, no, like you need to get, you know, your brothers together and figure out like, what are some things that you guys can do, like to help. Like, it's not about me telling you, like, you know, you're causing the problem, you know? So definitely very convicting and eye-opening and all that good stuff. And I want to share this last portion, which I know that you guys will appreciate from this. Uh-oh, gotta do that thing again. Okay.
Speak out, acknowledge. If you know that, you know, there is a female musician, regardless of if they are in your band or not, you know, acknowledge them, you know, support them just like you would support your male figures, you know, let them know, okay, there, you know, there's this amazing trumpet player, give her an opportunity, you call her, you know, get her on the bandstand. But I think that's probably one of the easiest things you can do is really shed light, and not just have women shed light on themselves, but you aid in that, and you aid in the promotion and the exposure to women who are really, doing something,
Have a conversation. Let them know, let your female counterparts know that you have the respect for them, that they don't need to be fearful. Something else that's really important is to create safe situations when women are in the room. A lot of times female musicians have to deal with sexual innuendo, and a lot of times there are situations where a musician in a band, a male musician in a band, will start trying to hit on a female musician, and everybody will kind of walk away. So if you find yourself in a situation where there is a male musician that is being incorrect, speak up. Call them out. Tell them, dude, we don't do this anymore. Where's the respect? Pull their coats. They need their coats pulled. Don't try and turn a situation that is a business situation into some kind of sexual overtoned situation. It's exhausting. It's disrespectful. It's unnecessarily time-consuming and time-wasted going away from the thing that everyone involved is trying to do, and that is create music.
It's crazy, right? It's like it's so funny to me that I just I have a feeling that Veronica would touch on the same thing. But even before I began, like Sasha was saying, some of these same things that have already been said, and I feel like it's just the power of repetition. Thank you, Ali. The power of repetition, not just in music, but even now, just those affirmations. Like we've heard the same things now twice, in two different rotations. So I think that when talking about the takeaways and what we can do to help, in self-reflection, it starts with us first. You kind of have to look and assess and analyze, okay, well, what am I doing? Am I part of the problem or the solution? And then having these open conversations like in this meeting on this platform, in an effort to, build the equity and boost and also hold each other accountable. So I hope you guys have enjoyed my presentation and my words, and thank you for having me once again.
Thank you so much, Tyson. That was awesome. Such a great presentation in total. Next, we have Veronica Swift. At just 25 years old, she has quickly become one of the world's most sought-after jazz talents. This past few years, she has toured and performed on numerous occasions with Michael Feinstein, Benny Green, Wynton Marsalis, and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, appearing at legendary festivals Montreal, Monterey, Detroit, and jazz clubs such as Birdland, Dizzy's Club, Jazz Showcase, Jazz Standard. She's the real deal. Take it away, Veronica.
I'm actually 26 now. I think that's an outdated bio there. No. Hi, everyone. Man, it is so great to hear y'all speak and hear everybody's stories. I'm not much of a public speaker, so I was really nervous for this. I mean, Allison could tell you, I was like, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this kind of thing. That's why they pay me to sing and not talk. No. But Sasha, I messaged Sasha. I messaged lots of the women and men on this in this event, just asking them for tips on, what kind of things are you talking about? And I think that's part of what Tyson was saying, like opening up this dialogue and checking in on people and saying, what kind of things are you experiencing? What kind of things are you talking about and doing to, fix this and get this, get on the right path. So I guess I'll just tell my story and see where the conversation takes us. I definitely experienced more genre biases than gender biases in my life. And I know that everybody no matter what your sex or race is, can attest to that. We all experience this. But like, for example, Sasha was talking about her experience in school, and I was also at the University of Miami. So I had really good and really bad experiences. We all do. And knowing what to take with you. I always came at this music while I'm still very much current and into like hearing music of today versus music of yesterday, and you know, letting it all inspire me. I still come at it from a traditional perspective, just because of my upbringing, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I got a lot of I'm gonna, you know, sorry, I'm not filtering out my language here, but I got a lot of shit for sticking to what people would say with vanilla changes or original changes, which in some cases the original changes are hipper, you know. So I got a little bit of an outcast thing based on my genre choices, but you know, just pick and play with the people that inspire you and get you to be the best musician that you can be. You know, like I was talking to Wynton about it, you know what's best for you at the end of the day when it comes to that kind of thing, who you want to be, what your voice is. But yeah, man, the stories here are all different, man. And I see there's change with every generation. I mean, just in my family alone, the women in my family, each generation has just experienced, has kind of been at the, in terms of voicing their opinions at the forefront of trying to change the dialogue and change the perspective, being authentic, making it about the music, like Tyson was saying, women, black jazz musicians, whatever, all of the past generations have kind of set the tone for us, and as we must do for the next. Anyway, I'll just give you a little bit of background. My name's Veronica Swift. I've been singing professionally for about 17 years now. I started when I was 9. You know, those movies with the old vaudeville families when they're on the road together, you know, on the road, sleeping in train stations, what have you, green rooms. That was me and my family, except with bebop. My mom, Stephanie Nakasian, was with Jon Hendricks in a vocal group in the 1980s for a couple of years, and performing with my father, who much older, but my father, Hod O'Brien, the great late in that order. He was, I mean, he was on the scene, bebop scene in the mid to late 50s. So he kind of hit it later, but he was playing with Pettiford, Art Farmer. You know, even Mingus wanted to come on tour for a while. And Chet Baker, this was my dad's group of people. And my dad was a, you know, white guy, but he experienced his, I wish I could have talked to him about it more before he passed away, because I wasn't really talking about those kinds of things when I was younger. But I would have liked to have known his experience with Mingus, you know, because I know that Mingus's group, they got a lot of, there was a lot of, you know, his music was so progressive and trying to call attention to the racial injustice, right? And so I would have liked to have known what my dad's experience was with that. I mean, my dad didn't think about race or anything like that, but there was so much in those times. My dad had actually been through like a shooting once. He had to get, you know, he was in the car with, I forget if it was Dizzy, but they get him to like duck down. It was scary, man. We are blessed. We don't, I mean, so many of us don't have to experience that today, but for me personally, my upbringing was really just, you know, there was a kinship, so much being embraced and accepted by the jazz industry, just being a young person dedicated to playing this music. And with each step I took deeper into this world, there were people who either knew me and my parents, or they saw that the dedication I put into this music and appreciated it, gave me guidance, lessons. And this continues even now. And I've never really, as a woman, I've never really been met with any sort of discrimination or on the basis of my gender. I'm very blessed in that way. I hear so many horror stories from my friends and my associates. I hear more like the she got the gig because she's a woman card, you know, and it just sickens me to hear that. Perhaps she got the gig because she was the best man for the job, for lack of a better term. I mean, most of this happens with the women instrumentalists, like who play more male-dominated instruments, like you know, trumpet, brass instruments, bass, drums. And Sasha's playing one of the hardest instruments to get a gig in too, as a sideman. Man, vibraphone, it's like being a vocalist, right? You're gonna most likely be just a band leader, right? And you have that role to fill, rather than a sideman kind of thing. So I think this is hard to do. I'm so bad at this. I think sexism is definitely different being a female singer. Although I did play trumpet for a good number of years, but I mean, in terms of what I'm known for, I'm just known right now mainly as just a jazz singer. And it's very different versus being an instrumentalist. The two can go hand in hand a lot of the time, but especially like the female instrumentalists out there who play those particularly male-dominated instruments, it's much more easily to be accepted as a female singer due to the traditional customs. But you ask the average listener to think of a female instrumentalist pre-1960. I mean, most popular names one could come up with are Mary Lou Williams, Lil Hardin, Hazel Scott, any of these. But how about Dolly Jones? We're talking about like even earlier, like way back. Helen Jones Woods, Clara Bryant, Peggy Gilbert, Viola Smith, Valletta Snow, Melba Liston. These women. And others from today, like Terry Lynn and Tia, Ingrid, Camille, who are playing this music at the highest level, regardless of their race and sex. They're, by doing just that, they're kind of breaking down these social constructs for future generations. And we can see it right now with those women I just mentioned. But the other women, like Dolly Jones, Valletta Snow, from like 1920s, 30s, a lot of us know who they are, but I think a lot of jazz musicians, particularly younger, couldn't mention those names. They're not familiar. I think it's important to keep educating people like this, like exactly what we're doing. But also it's a double-edged sword as well. Like Tyson was mentioning, by making it the main thing, it can also be a disservice and have the opposite effect. So like, where is that fine line? Where does that lie? Being a woman is not the defining characteristic of the art. It's just the whole piece of the whole puzzle. I can, for personal experience, recall stories of my grandmother. She was a jazz singer with big band singer, much different. Big band singer in the 1940s, and chick singers back then would just, sit quietly on a little chair to the side in their little dress with their perfect hair, which is fun. I love to dress up. Just look at how I'm dressed today. I love dressing up, but the role that those women had to fill was literally just sit in the chair to the side of the band. And I've done a couple gigs like this, and it just felt like a museum piece. I had no problems with it, but it just like, can you imagine doing that every day and being able to do nothing else, just sitting there, and you get up, go to sing the one chorus of the melody, just purely the melody, no scatting, you don't get a second chorus sometimes. The limiting formula that she felt pressured to stick to in order to keep the gig. I couldn't imagine. My grandma would feel actually envious of my mother, her daughter, who got to pick her own set, her own band, sing the way she wanted, even write her own original music and lyrics. This doesn't seem like such a big deal to people in my generation, but can you imagine, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that was almost unheard of sometimes. For most women, there are, of course, the great jazz singers when you're lucky enough to make it in the business, but so many women didn't have that opportunity, and I think my grandmother was envious of that. Things I definitely take for granted, even with just jazz styles. I mentioned genre bias earlier. My mother kind of experienced that. My mom came up in the 80s, 90s. She was doing her thing. My mom felt pressured to either be a bebop singer. You had to either do that, or you were a trad singer, or you were cabaret, Broadway, and she felt limited by that. She sees the evolution of the breaking down of labels of singers like myself. We see it with Cecile and Surreal and Jazzmia. We get to be known as the whole artist, where all the pieces of the puzzle make the genre label, right? Not just the specific style. Hence why I love Nina Simone. I love Sarah Vaughan and Diane Reeves. Their artistry is literally their name, right? Sarah, even that Sarah hated being just called a jazz singer. She so much that on Johnny Carson, I think one of the shows, what did she sing? Not My Funny Valentine, not Nearness of You, but she sang Ave Maria, like Ave Maria. She loved to sing opera. And I digress, but even with a gender bias, genre biases are being dismantled. I think now with each generation, we see so much, even like pop festivals. I don't really, what are they called? Kalamazoo, what is it? What, Bonnaroo, all those kinds of Coachella things. I don't know much about pop culture, but what I do witness in this festival culture is this huge, just like genre mixing of genres and musical influences and cultural influences. I see that so much in pop culture now, which I have hopes for the future, actually. This generation is all about opening up the dialogue. That's why we're here today, to better understand each other. And just as we're calling this music deconstruction, I think Allison was calling it, I call this a deconstruction period, right? Who knows what it will be like for those coming after us. But I must reiterate, I'm only an observer. I've not really been affected by any sort of bias in the industry. And I can only speak, of course, to being a woman in this industry. I'm not a Black person, so I don't come from that perspective. But what I notice is so much, like just from what I've experienced in terms of being accepted. And it's just kind of like the way of life, I've never had any other understanding of it except just, there's, I grew up with people, I grew up around Jon Hendricks a lot, Annie Ross, Bob Dorough, Phil Woods. A lot of these people were just around my family, like Uncle Bob, Uncle John. And it never occurred to me, they never called attention to any of the fact I'm a woman or the differences between races, just about the music, always with them. And so I've kind of lived my life with them as guides and heroes. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm really bad at this kind of thing. But I do see in industry and school with some of my friends, hearing my friends talk, that the pendulum goes from side to side so much. They're given way more opportunities than men to overcompensate, or given no opportunities, because men prefer to play with men or whatever. But in Sweden, I know that the government has implemented a rule that jazz clubs can only hire local bands if it's at least a 50-50 male to female ratio. So there are other governments in other countries trying to do things about it, which is good. I guess I only have a few more minutes left. I'm not, so let me just reiterate. I just believe, and due to my upbringing, I've just been blessed to not have come across too much of the biases or sexualization. I must reiterate, sexualization. I've never been hit on. Hearing the things that Tyson was playing, I'm just like, thank God, like we've kind of moved along in that way. I've never been hit on by anyone in the industry. I've never had, actually, my team is so wonderful. They're actually not even trying to call attention to the fact or trying to get me to bank on being a woman at all. It's all about, presenting the artistry. And I think just by being authentic and doing it with sincerity and playing with people, I hire females a lot too. I mean, I don't hire them because they're female. I hire them because they're killing musicians. I enjoy playing with them and we hang well. Just by being sincere and keeping this kind of thing going between us should be enough to break down these constructs in what is a male-dominated industry. I mean, that's just the fact. But by praising everybody's experiences and learning from each other and asking, where are you from? What's your story? That's what I ask whenever I play with a new musician. What's your story, man? And presenting the music at the highest level we can with authenticity, that should be enough. It should be, ideally. I think we should just lead by example.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Veronica, and all of you. It's great to see the work that needs to be done and the work that has been done and the progress that has been made. And I am so appreciative that you all three were here to share your insights and stories. And I think it's time to open it up for some questions. Our first question that was submitted is actually anonymous, so I'll be reading it. This is for everyone and anyone. How do you go about calling a person or institution or venue, etc., out that has done something wrong in terms of misogyny, transphobia, homophobia, etc., other biases that refuse to recognize their wrongdoing?
Sorry, my audio. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, so how do you go about calling a person or institution or venue out that has acted in a biased way, whether it's sexism, transphobia, homophobia, racist, an institution or person that refuses to recognize they've done anything wrong? How do you address that?
By not playing there. That's all I could say, really. I don't know about you guys. I've never come across that before.
And I think, like you said, when you ended, Veronica, I think you can only do and say so. Like you can't change people, right? It's like what you said. It's like you have to lead. That's what I'm just like. You have to lead by example. You know what I mean? Like if you have to be the one to. Now, if they cross the line in anywhere, they take advantage or whatever, then you know there's things that you can do to you know, take it to the next step. But anyone that won't change, I feel like those are just things that you can't. I mean, pray for them, but they continue to lead. That's what I would do. You know.
I think you know, we're in such a culture these days where it's so easy to write people off as sort of.
We can't hear you very well, Sasha.
Oh, I don't really know what to do about that. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We're in such a culture where it's very easy to write people off, and if someone like, I guess we don't consider really how much people's opinions are sort of reflective of how they grew up or how they, which is not by no means an excuse, but I think it's an important thing to consider in terms of, yeah, I guess cancel culture. It's an important thing to consider in terms of maybe having a discussion with this person and trying to get at like, oh, well, why do you have this opinion? Like, why are you, I don't know, you know, why are you so hostile? Why do you react so hostile to this, to, I don't know, including more women or thinking about diversity? Why do you react in the way that you do? What informed your reaction in this case? And I think not enough people ask why and really investigate that deeply as much as just completely writing people off. And of course, if, you know, there are some things that are inexcusable, no doubt. And those people, yes, I cut them out of my life or I don't give my time to them. I've certainly done that before. But I think if you have the energy to do it, and, you know, sometimes you don't, and that's totally okay too. And I think if you come from a point of privilege, then you should use your privilege to do that labor for someone who might find it exhausting. You know, or, you know, sort of what Tyson said, Terry Lynn said, you know, you need to do the work, or whatever, saying like men need to do the work to know what to do about sexism. You know, I shouldn't have to tell you. And I've heard many of my friends of color say the same thing. You know, you as a white person need to do your homework in terms of understanding racial bias. It's not my job to inform you. So that kind of thing, if you can initiate those conversations and those discussions coming from a point of privilege and do that work for someone else, you know, while being respectful and knowing, oh, may not be your personal experience, but you can help be an ally. You can help sort of have these discussions and get at why someone, I guess, holds the opinion that they do. And, you know, like, what is it that they believe in, and why, I don't know, how did they come to believing, you know, what they do, and what can we do to, you know, help them better understand, or something like that. Someone wrote in the comments, speaking up can go both ways, breaking down barriers, but also causing even more resistance. That's true. The ones speaking up are often viewed as just complaining, and others following later will be the benefits of the ones who dared to speak up. How did it work for you after you publicly spoke up? Are you talking about my letter? Yes. Okay. I actually had a lot of success with it. I definitely got some nasty messages. I had a lot of people say I was, whatever, complaining, or, in response to, like, I was talking about like what I was wearing, and, some people, I think, Anastasia mentioned something about like what you wear, and I think I was talking about women being sexualized for what they wear. I know Tia Fuller talks about this a lot because she's uh, just the way she dresses, she likes to wear like 6-inch stilettos and like
Always
tight
fly.
a lot of women. Yeah, absolutely. Her style's amazing. A lot of women find power in dressing sexy and owning that. Connie Han, who's on Mac Avenue with Veronica, she also sort of owns that. And so I had someone in my comments be like, oh well, you shouldn't, wear something that makes a guy want to hit on you or something like that. And I'm like, that's completely missing the point. Like, the point is that he shouldn't be, I shouldn't be getting unsolicited attention or whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah, shout out Mac Avenue. They have a super diverse roster, always. So I'm always impressed with them. Anyways, but for the most part, people were very receptive and were like, wow, I didn't know that you went through these experiences. I didn't know that, certain things happen this way and actually happen to you. And, I'm sorry, and I want to do my part to be better. And so I think you would be surprised, and you should really give people the benefit of the doubt that, people can learn and want to change and want to grow. Even if initially they show resistance, people can change and people can start to break once they get more used to that idea. Yeah, and obviously, yeah, there are some people who do not budge, and that's fine. You don't need to waste your time on them. You can't change everyone's minds. And it's not your job to, but I think it's good to give people the benefit of the doubt. And it's also, you're sort of taking a step for your community. And I think that was a big thing for me in terms of publishing the letter, because I was terrified. And, I've even had like women tell me like I shouldn't have published it or something like that. Basically told me I should keep my mouth shut. Like women in the industry whose music I love and respect. And I was so shocked to hear that from them. But there were far more people who were like, I really want you to say something like this. And, I had a lot of messages from like college aged women in particular being like, thank you for saying what I was too terrified to say. And that sort of redeemed any sort of negative comment, because I'm just, doing this to help, it's not just about my experiences and my voices, it's about, so many experiences, so many voices. So, I think thinking about, not just myself, but the community as a whole, in terms of speaking up, definitely, makes it worth it.
Awesome. Our next question is actually another question for Sasha. Sachi, you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, I'm Sachi. And you kind of just answered like a lot of the questions that I was going to ask. But I just want to say, like, first, I really appreciated a lot of the things that you shared, because I'm also a percussionist. Like, I do classical percussion, and I feel like run into a lot of the similar issues. But you spoke a lot about being underestimated or misjudged by musicians in academic settings, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about like your experience with sexism, like what it's been like outside of the classroom, and like what you just mentioned I thought was really interesting about like even being put down by other women, because it seems like maybe there can only be one musician, like one female musician in the band or something like that. And if that is something that you feel like is still very present in like casual social or networking situations, or if you think there's like been some sort of more progress in our generation.
So I will say I think it's gotten a lot better. I think things have absolutely changed. And I think having these discussions, having these, the very thing that we're doing right now is changing the sort of dynamic and making people more aware about the choices they make in terms of, who am I putting in my band? Oh, I should try, this or that person who I haven't tried before. In terms of outside of school, I think I experienced a lot more discrimination in terms of sexual harassment. And I was someone who dealt with people hitting on me, or like I've had a couple of situations, especially at places like Smalls, where I don't know why this is, but just men feel entitled to touch you, or to, I've had a number of times where someone just grabs my hand and kisses it after I perform. I'm just like, what? I did, it was, what made you think that you could do that, And at the time I was young enough that I kind of was in shock, and I didn't really know what to say. So I kind of just let it happen. But I remember being like, yeah, that was uncomfortable, and I don't even know you. The first time it happened to me, I think it was 18. And I was just like, all right. And I also had a situation with, when I was 18 as well, and I was starting to play out a lot more with an older musician who kept trying to make advances and saying like, you want this, I know you want this, like totally, being coercive and everything. And some of like my old teachers saw this happening, and they didn't say anything. They did not interfere at all. And that was also upsetting. And that was a situation where I felt like I wanted to earn his respect so bad at that time in my life, because like when you're young and you're just sort of getting out into the scene, and especially as a woman, if there's someone who really believes in your talent, that means a lot. And I guess that doesn't have to be a gendered thing, when we have mentors, or we have someone who says you really have something, like I really believe in you, that is validating. You want, you gravitate towards those people, but at the same time, people can use that to also take advantage of you. And I know quite a few people who have had experiences like that. My friend Maria Grand had an experience like that with Steve Coleman. And yeah, those kinds of things, we've talked about it before, it's that stuff was really hard. And it took me a couple years, not only to process it, but to know how to like, say something, or how to, I don't know, respond to that. So I'd say that that's what I experienced more in terms of in the real world. I didn't experience, and then there's some occasions where people, do the thing again where they expect women to not perform as well. So they, see me, whatever, come up to the stage, and they're like, what standards do you know? And I'm like, like, please don't infantilize me. And then I'll play something, they're like, wow, I had no idea you could play like that. And I was like, like, I understand the sentiment is, if the intention is good, but it comes off as like, disrespectful. It means you didn't expect me to do well. And again, that's the thing where like, if expectations have a lot of impact, if someone doesn't expect you to perform well, then you're not going to perform as well. So that kind of thing really.
I don't know about you, Sasha, but I get off on the fact that people expect, especially being a chick singer, that a lot of that kind of thing happened before I would go up and play a tune. And I actually got off on the fact that people would expect nothing of me, right? And then you get up and you just kill it. And you're like, it's like a big F you, actually.
Oh,
and that's such a great, and that gets people to be like, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't think of singers that way, or maybe I should not have any expectations. And it's in that way, like just playing your shit the way you do so well, like that kind of gets people to be like, oh, maybe I'm being a bit of an asshole here.
Yeah, totally. I think about that all the time. Yeah, and I love like proving people wrong, but I also think that if you play with the intention to prove someone wrong, that it might not come from a genuine place all the time. So I mean, of course, it's a, you should think about that, and I certainly do think about changing up people's expectations and things like that. But at the same time, I don't want to play with that intention. I want to play just being me, and you relate to that as well. So, but yeah,
awesome.
Say that much.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We are out of time, but thank you, all of you, Sasha, Tyson, and Veronica, for such wonderful presentations and perspectives. It's awesome to have you part of this event. And thank you all for being here. I hope you can take some great points away from this discussion today and pass along the knowledge and implement some of this wisdom into your everyday life. 'Cause it's really important to hear from people who are living in the world today, in the scene, as they said. I just want to thank again the team that helped present this: Alon Sullivan, Josie Alla, Meg Brennan, Sammy Sussman, Eliza Salem, Bob Hurst, Ed Sereth, Aiden Taylor, and Mark Hannaford. And I want to thank our sponsor for this event, the Excel Lab. And our next event is at 3:30. It's a panel of professors and scholars: Professor Ellie Hisama, Professor Stephanie Jensen Moulton, and Ashley Gordon, to speak on intersections of race and gender in musical practices and institutions. Hope you can join us. Thank you so much again, Sasha, Tyson, and Veronica. Hope you all have a great rest of your weekend.